Less than 24 hours after picking up Mikal Bridges in a trade, the Knicks re-signed OG Anunoby to a 5-year deal, locking up their future as one of the most complete rosters in basketball. You've got the 2017 Villanova guys, you've got another 25 point per game scorer, you've got an elite center rotation, but just how good can we expect this team to be next season? Any discussion about the Knicks right now has to start with what we can reasonably expect from Bridges and what they're looking to get out of the trade. It's easy to forget the caliber of player he is on the wing next to other high-end talent because of his miscast role in Brooklyn. They had him operating like a lead creator, labeling him their franchise guy and expecting him to generate a bunch of offense with the ball, whether that's in isolation or out of pick and roll. And it's not like he's completely inept. He's got a really nice mid-range game, consistently working his way to the middle of the floor for pull-up jumpers, and he pairs that in-between scoring with the ability to make basic passing reads, such as this one where Kobe White drops to tag the roller, and he quickly kicks it to the corner for a great look from 3. He's also decent at getting downhill, especially when it comes to attacking slower footed bigs in space and using his length, and whenever he does get into the defense on drives, he sees the floor pretty well and knows how to find the open man on kickouts, so you are getting some shot creation out of him. However, when it comes to his on-ball game, there are 3 major flaws. For one, he isn't nearly a good enough passer to create at volume like a true number 1. I'm pretty sure this one was a lob, and he also isn't a good enough ball handler. When it comes to operating in tight spaces or trying to generate separation, he just simply isn't that type of player. Some guys can negate that limitation with explosive burst, and Bridges lacks in that area as well, so you're left with an overtasked wing who often has to rely on a really tough diet of shots. Meaning that despite having some nice qualities, I'd argue that his role on the Nets led to him looking a lot worse than he actually is. His box score numbers weren't all that impressive, he was well below league average efficiency, and the Nets won a measly 32 games, so he sort of became an afterthought in NBA discussion. However, when you look at the Knicks, they already have one of the best shot creators on the planet in Jalen Brunson. He's a masterful operator out of pick and roll, capable of utilizing all 3 levels and countering any covers thrown his way, while his unique combination of twitchiness, strength, elite ball handling, and difficult shot making have also turned him into one of the game's best inside the arc isolationists. He pairs this versatile attack with low error, sharp passing, which allows New York to run a very heliocentric type of offense around his game. Almost every possession starts with the ball in his hands, and because he's such an effective volume scorer, the defense has to shift towards him. And as a result, he's constantly creating advantages and off-the-catch situations for the wings around him, which is exactly where Mikal thrives. If we take a look at his corner 3-point shooting since entering the league, he's been over 40% in 5 straight seasons now, peaking at nearly 45% 2 years ago. In simpler terms, if he's spotted up in the corner, you can reasonably expect some good results. But that doesn't mean he's only a threat to shoot from the corner. He's not a guy who can be left open anywhere on the floor. Over the last 3 seasons, he's hit nearly 42% of his wide open threes, and he doesn't actually need all that much space. He'll shoot in tight windows, over contests, and occasionally even off of some movement. This is really important because he's an incredibly smart mover without the ball. Here's one where his man starts to help at the nail, so he quickly drops to the corner to make himself a target for a quick hitting jumper on the move. And on this play, his man is again more worried about helping at the nail, but instead of dropping to the corner, he relocates to the opposite wing, where he finds a ton of space for a practice jumper. Whenever he is away from the ball, his feel for filling out space really stands out. Here's one where he moves towards the corner, not for an open jumper, but for a lane to attack off the catch as he gets to a reverse lay. And this right here is the key. I talked about how he was overtasked as a lead creator, but when advantages are being created for him, he's got more than enough skill with the ball in his hands to consistently capitalize. He's one of the most decisive attackers in the league when it comes to beating closeouts, which is something that should fit like a glove in New York. And like I said, he lacks the burst and handle to consistently beat defenders from a standstill. In these situations, he's able to get into the defense and utilize his length as a finisher around the rim. I also talked about how he's good at making the right reads out of drives. Well, when he's getting paint touches against an already rotating defense, he'll find the open man and continue to extend those advantages. Maybe most importantly though is that mid-range game. When he beats a closeout and the paint is packed, the ability to stop and pop is just such a valuable counter. Because he's so good at playing off the catch, he can be used as a weapon in off-ball action. The Knicks really like to use ghost screens. Here's one where he does a great job of finding some open space to attack before using his length to score inside. More times than not, this is going to be some sort of handoff action though. By attacking on the move, it's a lot easier for him to get into the defense on drives, and this is actually pretty tough to defend because if the big drops back, he of course has that pull-up mid-range game, but he's also a threat to reject the action with his sharp off-ball movement, so the defense has to be on point at all times. That doesn't just apply to set action either. When he's off the ball, it's really difficult to bring help off of him, not just because of his shooting or quick attacks, but how he'll cut into open space for easy opportunities at the rim. He's one of the best cutters in the league, and like I said, because the Nets lacked on-ball talent, he wasn't able to showcase this part of his game nearly as much. Next to one of the league's best shot creators and multiple capable slashers, I'm sure his ability to fill out space will certainly be rewarded. So all things considered, I'd expect next year's version of Mikal to look like a more juiced up version of what we saw in Phoenix, operating off the ball as a spot-up shooter with the occasional set action to get him attacking on the move, and within that role, I'd expect some really efficient results. For the Knicks though, the hope is that with a reduced offensive load, he can get back to the level of defense he was playing in Phoenix when he made the all-defensive first team and finished as the runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year. Now, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with him being a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, but at the time, he was undoubtedly one of the league's best defensive wings. I've been looking to find the best deal on tickets to the next Indiana Fever and Chicago Sky game coming up in just 2 months. My search always starts on SeatGeek, the #1 rated ticketing app with over 28 million downloads, and the sponsor for today's video. There are more than 70,000 events on SeatGeek, ranging from concerts to sporting events to festivals, and I personally was able to land a great deal on some awesome seats to the NCAA men's final game between Purdue and UConn back in April. They put all of the tickets across the web in one place for you and rate each ticket on a scale of 1 to 10. Green, of course, being the best deal and red being the worst. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee, while being the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swaps. And you know I came through for you guys. Use my code VENUE for $20 off of tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code VENUE. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. And with that said, let's take a look at some of Mikal's defensive tools back in Phoenix. At 6'6" with a 7'1" wingspan, he's got the ideal build for a modern-day perimeter defender. He's not a huge defensive playmaker, rather someone who can stick to an individual matchup and just make life really difficult. He's light and agile on his feet, and the fluidity with which he moves not only allows him to stick with shiftier ball handlers, it helps him get around screens, especially when chasing shooters. If you remember at the time, he was widely considered to be one of, if not the best Steph Curry defender in the league. He could play at the point of attack and smother creators with his length. He could stick to movement shooters and run them off the line. And when playing away from the ball, he was a very sound help defender. You won't find a ton of huge plays at the rim or crazy reads to blow up actions, but he won't miss rotations, he won't lose his man, and he'll constantly be in the right spot at the right time, which is exactly what you want within a high-level playoff defense. In Brooklyn, the motor had been questionable, and I wonder how much of that has to do with the situation. Not only was he asked to do more offensively, taking away energy, there's just a big difference between playing defense on a 60-win team that's looking to compete for a title and a team that might not even make the play-in. If you wanted to point to one defensive weakness or limitation, I'd say it's his lack of strength and how that prevents him from switching up onto bigger players. Thankfully for him, New York has the strongest forward in the NBA on their team, creating an incredibly dynamic defensive duo. I'm of course talking about OG Anunoby, who is a rare breed of defender that can legitimately switch 1 through 5. He's a little bit taller, a little bit lengthier, and a lot stronger than Mikal, so he's the guy who can take those bigger wing assignments. My mind immediately goes to the Celtics, as they're the team to beat in the East, and I'd feel pretty good about going into a series with Mikal and OG as my first line of defense against the Jays. Last year, the Knicks went a remarkable 20-3 with OG in the lineup, and in just his minutes had a net rating of plus 22.4, which doesn't even sound real. They were absolutely dominant with him on the court, and bringing Mikal onto the roster creates a few interesting avenues. For one, they can play both at the same time as much as they want because each can shoot and put the ball down. So by leaning into the versatile defensive structure, they aren't sacrificing any sort of spacing or offense. Secondly, I'm sure they'd always keep one on the floor because they do share many of the same strengths, and that means the dominance with OG on the court can maybe be replicated in some other lineups. Most importantly though, is that Mikal offers injury insurance that they didn't previously have. OG's been a guy who struggles to consistently stay on the court, playing more than 50 games just one time in the last 4 years, while calling Mikal Iron Man would be an understatement. He has never missed a game in his 6-year NBA career, last year even playing 83 as a result of getting traded mid-season. We all know Tom Thibodeau loves to play his guys big minutes whenever possible, and with Mikal, that's about as surefire a bet as I've ever seen. If OG's able to rest more, that could mean he's a lot healthier come playoff time, and this creates the question mark of Julius Randle. I've seen many floating around the idea of trading him for some more depth or another wing defender, and at this point, I'm really not sure what to expect. He's a really good creator, using his physicality to apply constant downhill pressure, and he probably just had the best season of his career before getting injured. The question mark comes with fit and what's actually needed of his skill set. If you want to start both Mikal and OG, and 2 more spots are filled by Brunson and a big, that leaves one position where you can go 3 completely different directions. For shooting and spacing, the obvious answer is slotting OG up to the 4 and starting Donte DiVincenzo, which could lead to some issues with the small backcourt. For more defensive versatility and pace, they'd likely go to Josh Hart, which puts more pressure on Brunson to create. But for sheer talent and offensive versatility without sacrificing size, Julius Randle checks all of those boxes, except I think he puts a cap on the type of defense they can run, as he isn't very switchable and quite frankly doesn't have too many positive qualities. I'm not sure if they'll look to trade or if they'll move forward with this roster, but if they can figure out how to incorporate Randle as a second creator into that lineup without sacrificing defense, we're talking about a truly terrifying top 8. That's if they're able to retain Isaiah Hartenstein, who broke out as a clear starting caliber center that will likely be pursued very aggressively in the offseason. One of the game's best creators in Brunson, a high-level secondary creator in Randle, 2 incredibly versatile wings in Mikal and OG, with an elite center rotation of Hartenstein and Mitch doing all of the dirty work inside. Then off the bench you have Donte and Hart, Deuce McBride for some more offensive punch when needed, and I'll be the first to say I am very high on this team. Even last year, I said that I'd give them the best chance of any team in the East to beat Boston, and now after adding Mikal, I feel even more firm in that assessment. As it stands, I'd say they're the second best team in the East, and have as good a shot as anyone at competing for the 2025 championship. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of the Knicks. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.